Everyone, and welcome back to Always Watching. Today we are discussing the film How to Make a Million Before Grandma Dies. So briefly, the film follows M, a young man who quits work to care for his dying grandmother Amma in hopes of inheriting her wealth. The film has become the highest grossing feature in 2024 to date in Thailand and Singapore, and the biggest Asian film of all time in Indonesia. It is also the biggest ever Thai film in Malaysia, the Philippines, and Myanmar. What makes this film unique is the emotional impact that it's having on its audiences. I felt like I really connected with M and his grandmother, and I could very much relate to their dynamics. Although specific to Thai culture, many of the themes are universal and apply to many different types of people, specifically the relationship between parent and child and how sometimes we take for granted the people that care about us the most. We are first introduced to M playing video games on his computer. He's a very self-involved young man who dreams of easy money and an easy life. Inspired by a family friend, M decides to dedicate every waking moment to his dying grandmother in hopes of inheriting her wealth. Most of the film takes place in various apartments belonging to M's family. Although they gather for family functions and holidays, this is not a very close-knit family. The distance between their homes and also the differences in their lifestyle really emphasize this point. Culturally, this film will relate to many different types of people. Even Amma's children feel like people we know: the overachieving son, the underachieving daughter, and the deadbeat. In comparison to her children's homes, Amma's home feels like a museum. Even though her children are older, she has kept everything from their childhood. And every time I go home, I'm always very surprised that my parents have kept everything, even things that I've forgotten about a long time ago. And everything in Amma's house feels very claustrophobic, but I think it's to make her feel less alone. Amma is dying of cancer, but she does a great job of masking her pain. And the more time she spends with her grandson, the more vulnerable she becomes, and the easier it is for her to start showing this pain. In the beginning, M is barred from even entering her room, but over time they start sleeping in the living room together. And the closer they become emotionally, the more Amma trusts her grandson, even though she knows he's using her for money. In many cultures, money is a massive indicator of love. Parents are expected to give everything to their children with absolutely no expectation of a return. And as a result, children are really placed under a lot of pressure to take care of their parents when they do get older. Amma's case, her children do want to take care of her, but they're taking care of her in hopes of getting something out of her. And even though her children are grown, they still see their mother as their caregiver. And we don't get much insight into Amma's life, but it seems like she was also placed in a similar situation where she had to take care of her parents. However, the outcome was not in her favor. And depending on the culture you're from, there are very different expectations regarding the son and the daughter. And sometimes a lot of burden can be placed on the daughter to take care of the parents, where the sons inherit everything because they're boys. Now that Amma is much older, she's kind of placed in a position where she doesn't really know how to respect all her children without making one feel worse than the other. Like, how do you divide your wealth in a fair way? Do you give it to the child that is unable to take care of himself, or do you give it to the children that have exceeded your expectations? And I think I really appreciated how this movie portrayed the relationship between parent and child as like caretaker and caregiver. When it comes to parent-child relationships, obviously this balance is heavily one-sided. You can see that in the dynamic between Amma and her children. Like, even though she's much older, a lot of the burden is still placed on Amma, and where she feels a lot of the burden, she feels like she has to take care of her kids and make sure that they're all okay. I don't really have the same awareness about her well-being that she does for them. And I love that it's her grandson that's taking care of her, because M in the beginning is very self-centered, but the more time he spends with his grandmother, the more self-aware that he becomes. And you can see that in his behavior and all these small things that he starts to do, like massaging his mother's feet or helping her put away the groceries. Like, these are not things you really think about, and he has an opportunity to change his behavior before his mother gets older. And M's time with his grandmother forces him really to reevaluate his relationship to his mother. He's watching the way that Amma's children are treating her, and he's almost disgusted. He becomes very protective over her, and the more time he spends with her, the more he starts to remember about his childhood, and the more he starts to feel gratitude and a sense of love for his grandmother that he never really felt before. And he does his best to help her children remember. And again, watching Mama's children treat her as a means to an end makes him feel really bad. I think this movie effectively highlights how sometimes we really do take our parents for granted. Like even when I go home, there's a lot that I remember. I'm filled with a lot of gratitude, but the minute I'm away from home, I forget these things. And I think sometimes as children, especially as we get older, we really can take for granted the people around us, especially our parents, and become indifferent to their suffering or even just to their basic comforts. This movie hits way too close to home. I mean, it really made me think about all the times that maybe my parents said they loved something when they didn't, all the times that maybe they wanted to spend more time with me but I left in a hurry because I had something better to do. And this movie makes you reevaluate every sort of interaction you've had with your family members, especially the ones that you love, and it makes you want to text them and hang out with them. Overall, I highly recommend this film. It is an emotional roller coaster. Like I couldn't believe, like I didn't know why I was crying, and it's impressive, to be honest. So you guys let me know what you're thinking. Until next time.